right. Well, hey guys, welcome. I'm so glad to see you here today. This is a follow-up to our planning meeting. And since it's a small group of us right now that's live, I welcome your feedback anytime you have questions, etc. I prepared a little slideshow to kind of orient us, and we'll share this with people who aren't able to attend right now too.
I
So
can
this
see
is
it.
about action. Can you tell? Yes. What we did in our first meeting was really informative and interesting, and there is a Google Doc right now that is linked from the website here, commons.library.upenn, and it lists out in transcribed format what everybody said. And I did take the liberty to add some context that I could remember. So if I didn't capture everything perfectly, we can definitely refine. But there was a lot about what would be success at the end of this initiative. And the way it kind of framed out, and in particular, the research planning group came up with this. It was that we wanted to figure out what is the landscape, both here at Penn, who's doing what, but also what are the trends more broadly? What are the possibilities? And by possibilities, we mean concrete examples of ways people are using these technologies in teaching and learning or in research in particular. We also wanted to know what's the availability, both here at Penn and then also beyond Penn. There's a lot of prototypes, there's a lot of new models coming out for augmented reality or virtual reality, and we want to know what those are. And then the last point was really we wanted to develop among our own project group, if you will, but also on campus, greater expertise, familiarity, and awareness of these technologies that will ultimately help us if we are in the support role down the line. And so we're starting out with kind of a bit of an unknown, maybe a big mess, but we know we can do this. And so this group in particular, I'm really encouraged and humbled by the people that have been showing up, because it's people who want to do things and take action. So there is no try, there's only do, and that's what we're going to do. But of course, we've got a lot of things going on when we look at landscape and examples, et cetera. So we started out by dividing and conquering. And what I would like to propose for you all to consider is that in the fall semester, if we chunk out the next couple of months, that we really do two things. We focus on getting a handle on the landscape of what's out there, and that we also focus on some very concrete case studies that we can share with other people. And so as I was taking the information in from what we did in the collaborative classroom, I was kind of trying to think simply across the semester and across these different groups. And you don't need to understand this nutty handwriting, but really the focus is to think of us almost as if we're tracks in a conference, and that there are tracks looking at different aspects of this initiative, but they really are all interconnected and intertwined. And so we want to keep that in mind as we move forward as a group. So I imagine we have a number of teams, and you've already let me know that there are certain teams that you want to participate in, and these are the teams that are kind of shaking out, and this may change over time because it's a work in progress. But in particular, I would like to call your attention to 4 teams that I think could hit the ground running right now. And that is the technologies group they already have, the group that wants to look at what's happening specifically at Penn in terms of case studies and examples, what's happening in Philadelphia or the country, but in these particular areas, and then also literature and what libraries are doing. The other 2, communications and events and research design, they're coming together, but we don't have as many people right now focused on them. I'm going to propose these tasks, and those of you, especially Peter and David, you are in the technologies group. I hope you will give feedback on this. But what I'm proposing is that the technologies group really creates a deliverable that is kind of a list of what's going on at Penn, where the resources are, the who's who, and what are they doing kinds of things, especially as it relates to the technologies. So is there a HoloLens in Med, and is there a HoloLens in Wharton, and is it here in the library or whatever? Where are these things? The second thing that the group came up with is to research what's been done recently at conferences, what are the trends that are happening, and then what are the trends and what are the people who are the people in higher ed doing these things. And so we're going to have a blog. And I'd love for that team to have a place where they can have a living document or at least update the information as it becomes available. This team in particular is going to really need to connect to other groups and communicate, and hopefully Slack will facilitate that. And of course, we'll lead the way in publishing blog posts, 2 over the course of a semester at a minimum. All right, our at Penn team. This team and the Philly Plus team are very closely aligned, in at least in my mind, and we really want to create 3 case studies, documented case studies in each, hopefully video and media types of case studies so that we can see what people are talking about in each of these areas. And even at our planning meeting, we have people right now, we know, if we count Peter as one, if we got people that are doing things in augmented reality, 3D and VR here at Penn. So just getting those things made, coming up with protocols and questions that as we do these case studies, we're collecting similar types of data so that we can compare and contrast, and that the Philly Plus team could also use and perhaps co-design with this group. And then, of course, still we're connecting teams, and it'd be cool to publish 2 blog posts per case study so that we get an initial one before the final video has been produced, for example, and then one at the end that brings more information to light. So that was the idea for at Penn. You will notice that Philly Plus is extremely similar. The one difference is bullet number 3 here. If there are things happening, especially in the local area where field trips could be planned, that might be a great thing to do as well. But it's the same deal. Try to get 3 case studies. Maybe instead of focusing so much on the technology, it would be looking at the academic institution, a nonprofit, and a commercial, regardless of which of the technologies they're using. Literature and libraries. Clay, you got to give me your feedback on this one. This group talked a lot about where we could go and how we could engage the broader community. And what I have proposed here is actually for a program group for like I'm calling you guys all researchers. All of us are researchers. And so the people that are internal doing the work, that they build this citation repository, basically. And it looks like we're going to need to use Zotero. And I know that's not accessible necessarily to everyone in the whole world in terms of them wanting to use it, but it is openly accessible and freely available, and it is something that librarians use and we offer training on. So I'm hoping that we can not only find some of these citations through the resources that Penn has and openly available as well, but also draft an annotated bibliography. And I think the challenge for this group is coming up with the criteria. What kinds of citations are we going to promote as research quality? There's certainly a lot written about these different technologies, and I think this group would be in a great position to determine what rises to the top and what we want to share with researchers and colleagues across campus. I think it would be awesome if they talk to a couple of other libraries and find out what they're doing. So maybe connecting with them and seeing how they're supporting this would be great. And then, of course, blog posts. We have already reserved the pavilion upstairs for 2 dates in October to see if one will shake out. But we would love to have a panel symposium of faculty, students, researchers, whoever's using these technologies. We thought we could do an open house in September and November, and then there was a great idea to do virtual reality study breaks in the Education Commons in December for students. We're open to other ideas. We're going to have workshops each month in the fall, but these are some big events that we could start working with the tech group and others to get on the calendar and promote. Down at the bottom, you'll see there are a lot of different technologies that we're using, and we see them as public facing. We have to create a blog, but we've got the listserv, the web page. We've got things that we're going to use internally to the research team, and that's Slack, other tools that each team may choose to use. And then administratively, everything that we produce as a group, the data that we were able to collect, we'd like to store in Box so that we have a record of what we've done. And ultimately, what we're hoping to do is create a collection in our repository. You see that link below, so that this is a special collection created at Penn. Research design. Help! We need help with research design, but it will come. I'm certain. We have a lot of researchers around, but we need to think about the data we're going to collect, the hypotheses we want to test, the planning, the data management planning we need to do, etc. All right, you've made it. We're almost done. The bucket. This is a prototype. The idea is that we're all seeing and finding different resources or hearing about people that are doing cool things that would be great for these teams to take the ball and run with. And so we've created a form to collect these ideas. And as people join Slack and commit to doing these different projects, we'll give them access to the results. And the reason I'm not making those results public right now is because there could be people identified who may not willingly have opted in to be identified to the wider public. And so we just want to make sure that the people who have access are the people who should. And that bucket is accessible right now through the Commons/PennImmersive site. It's also in Slack. And it may not work, and if it doesn't, we'll change it. Here's what our Slack looks like. If you haven't gotten in yet, let me know and I'll get you in there. And in terms of next steps, what we're hoping is that we start getting team members into Slack, get access to the bucket, and that these teams, we are all nodes in a network. And what would be awesome is if there's a particular person or people that agree to be leads for a team and a channel, and that way they can add people as different individuals who want to be a part or have much to contribute and are willing to be a part, that you can add them to Slack and bring them up to speed. We need to coordinate across our teams, so we're hoping that that will happen in Slack. And probably at some point we need some way to document or report our progress to one another visually. Maybe it's a spreadsheet, etc. And I hope that everybody who plays along in this will generate ideas for improvement and suggestions about what we could do better. And that is the end of this presentation. So with that, I will stop sharing and ask for any feedback, questions, and ideas.